Hey there, horror movie tea sippers.
The following podcast episode will contain spoilers for the movie we are about to review. If you have not seen the movie and do not wish to have anything ruined prematurely, please do not continue to watch or listen until you have seen the movie.
And welcome to the Horror Movie Tea Podcast. Today we are covering another Carrie request. We are covering The Lawnmower Man, which came out in 1992. But before we go into the review, let's grab our cups and talk about tea. We are repeating. My goodness. Okay. We are repeating our teas because we didn't want to get waterlogged. I am drinking the Plum Deluxe Peaches and Cream Oolong. It has a black tea, oolong tea, apple pieces, apricot pieces, calendula, and peach and vanilla essence.
And I am drinking Bigelow's Mint Medley Herbal Tea. It is caffeine-free and all-natural, and has peppermint leaves, spearmint leaves, rose hips, lemon peel, and hibiscus.
But, as always, thank you, Plum Deluxe, for allowing us to continue to do what we love. And for our tea sippers out there, brew yourself a cup of tea, sit back, relax, and we hope you enjoy the review. So, for the summary, a scientist performs experiments involving intelligence-enhancing drugs, mostly to deal with Alzheimer's, and virtual reality, including virtual reality, on a lawn worker named Job. He puts Job on an intense schedule of learning, and quickly he becomes brilliant. But then Job starts having a few ideas of his own on how the research should continue, and the scientist begins losing control of his experiments. So, entertainment. Oh, man, I hope that this isn't a trend.
I wanted to like this movie. I did.
For me, I was kind of hoping it'd be a comedy, like
a little. Yeah.
Like a lawnmower meets the fly, like he becomes a lawnmower. Wouldn't that be like stupidly hilarious? He becomes a lawnmower and starts killing people. That's what I was expecting. And I did not.
So I read the description, and that was not what I was expecting at all. But the description sounded interesting, and I actually did really want to like it. It just kind of fell short for me.
So we're sorry, Carrie. For entertainment, I would give this a 4.5. It's just... Well, let me just say a few points and that'll do an overall thing. But the graphics, I know it's 92, but the graphics were absolutely horrible. And,
Felt like a sci-fi original.
Yeah, is that we've mentioned this before. It's a movie, the problem with a movie with too many graphics is once you get enough ahead of its time, it really ages the movie, and not always, but typically makes it harder to be engaged with the story. And so this one, it definitely, every time I saw the virtual reality setting, it just took me out of the movie.
Yes.
I lost interest real quick.
Yeah.
So
sure, it was great for the time, but felt like ass.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was great for the times, because it's in the 90s, there was Jurassic Park, and the CG in Jurassic Park. A lot of people forget that Jurassic Park, the original Jurassic Park, not only did they have animatronics, but they did have CG, but they just knew how to use it.
And they did it well.
Yeah, it still holds up pretty well today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's still one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's so, I don't know. I feel like
they could have definitely done better.
Instead of having it the way that they did, they could have made it you look like a real fleshed out person. And so that way, whenever the movie ages, it's like, oh, this is a person, they're fully detailed. This, keeps it realistic.
So in the combat simulation, it looked a lot like Unreal Tournament, and I don't know if that was intentional or not.
I don't know.
But that's the level of graphics we had there.
Yeah.
If that tells our viewers anything.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, the mood of the movie for me was pretty boring. Even the beginning of the movie, like whenever they showed the monkey, it lost me real quick. And the fact that it's kind of confusing because IMDb said that it was like an hour and 45 minutes, but the version we watched was like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Like the director's cut or something.
Okay. Oh, yeah. But anyway, so I think we accidentally stumbled upon a version of the director's cut. But yeah,
lengthy.
Yes. Anyways, whether it be an hour and 45 minutes or 2 hours and 20 minutes, the movie was too long. And then also it just felt uncomfortable that it's like, I know the scientist like told him, do you want to become intelligent and stuff like that? And he technically consented, but you have to argue, it's like, first, I feel like the scientist wasn't fully transparent on what exactly that meant and what the risks of it were. So it's like, I feel like he couldn't morally consent or even legally consent for that reason alone. But the second is you understand that this man's IQ is lower than average, but we don't know exactly what that means. And so you could also make the argument, is he intelligent enough to fully understand what that means? And if that's not the case, then it doesn't matter if he says yes or no, he shouldn't be moving forward with the experiment. So I felt like the whole movie had just moral problems, which I guess was kind of the point, where it's like, the scientist at first he is using a monkey, and then he is like, oh, the next step up is someone of lower intelligence, because, so it's like, that's already messed up. So it's just like one of those movies where it's like the scientist goes about it the completely wrong way, and then it just like backfires. But yeah, it's like, overall, I'm not mad that I watched this movie, but I also would not be upset if I had never watched the movie. The graphics, like, I can see, it's like if you watch it with a friend with a party and you're talking in between, like while the movie's playing, it might be funny to laugh at the graphics and the ridiculousness of the whole scenario. But by yourself, or not in laughing company, I probably would skip this one. So
we're twinsies.
Oh, really?
I gave it a 4.5 as well.
Oh.
It was just, it felt slow and a little boring. Again, I really did want to like this one, even with kind of a dumb title.
It had an interesting concept.
It did. And I feel like it could have been really good, but the execution of it just fell really short on it. And I mean, the premise itself felt similar to Jurassic Park. Like, it's man trying to play God and trying to push past the limits and everything, but they didn't really think about if they should.
There's a lot of 80s and 90s movies like that.
Yes.
I feel like it's like with the internet coming along and our growing technology, that was kind of the mood at that time.
Yes.
They're like, should we keep pushing?
Yeah. Like, is this really the best idea?
And we still don't know.
They thought so long and hard about, can we? and developing the technology for being able to do that, that they never really thought about checks for how they're doing that and when to stop. Like, when enough is enough and when should we back off. And it just turns into, honestly, for lack of a better term, shit show. Each time.
Yeah.
And everybody always acts surprised.
Yeah.
And they had such high hopes. Honestly, like when the movie first started and they have that little blurb at the beginning that you read about, you know, at the end of the millennium, the current millennium, because it was the 90s,
Yeah.
everybody will be using virtual reality. I'm like, oh, sweetie, you had such hopes.
Not like
you had such faith.
2014 or something.
With virtual reality. And even nowadays, it's not used that often. Like, there's a lot of people that do use it, but it's not like the thing to use.
Yeah, it's more like it's
a very niche kind of thing. And it's not for every game either. It's just for certain ones. So they had such hopes, these sweet things, and it just, no.
They're about 2 decades off, or...
Oh, even more.
Yeah.
But they don't think about the repercussions of it. They don't think to stop it sooner when there's, you know, concerning things in the data. There's just so much wrong with it in the realism that just doesn't make sense. Like, they tried to movie so hard that everything is like a giant nope and doesn't make any kind of sense when you really think about it. So it's very frustrating to watch, and a lot of it just feels kind of forced. Like they're dragging you through the story, and you're just kind of waiting for it to be done. Which made me very disappointed, because again, I did want to like it, but it was so slow and didn't make much sense.
Yeah, apparently this is like I don't know the full story behind it, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But what I was reading is The Lawnmower Man was a short story that Stephen King wrote. However, this movie is actually closer based to another either short story or book called Cyberman.
Yeah.
And there's apparently like a whole legal thing, because whenever they first started advertising, they're like, oh, Stephen King, The Lawnmower Man. And Stephen King's like, this isn't one of my book.
Stephen King sued them because it was so different and he didn't want his name associated with it at all.
Yeah.
And then he had another lawsuit because when they came out with the hard copy video of it, they had his name on it again. So he had to sue them again.
Oh my gosh.
So they would change it and take his name off of it.
But my point being, though, is like they bought their rights and they intentionally like made this movie adapting it from a written source. And so it's like one of those things where it's like, you know, so many of those types of movies tend to not be that great.
They don't hit the mark. They just fall short.
And it's like, I honestly don't know how close this movie is to Cyberman or how different it is from The Lawnmower Man.
A little bit of Lawnmower Man, from what I recall reading about, like the synopsis, was they had sacrifices to some kind of god.
Oh.
For abilities and stuff. So
that's like completely
different. Yes. Vastly different.
They messed that one up.
Yes, they did. I feel like that would have been more interesting, honestly.
Yeah. But anyways, so it's like, I feel like they didn't make this movie with a passion. They made it with the intention of making money, which I think is the reason why they put Stephen King's name is, because they're like, oh everybody likes Stephen King.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like with a lot of movies, I feel like you can really tell when there's a passion for it and when there's not. And this movie just definitely doesn't. It feels pretty flat.
You can tell certain actors really did try, like the doctor.
Yeah, Pierce Brosnan. I mean,
he really tried.
He's a great actor.
Yeah, he did. And there were a couple other characters whose names I can't really recall. They did a decent-ish job with what they had, but what they had was kind of crap.
Yeah, it sucked because it's like, I love Pierce Brosnan. I mean, who doesn't? But it's like, and so because it was him playing it, I wanted to like his character. But as soon as, I mean, you know, the experiment with the monkey, which, I mean, is arguable in some scenarios, you kind of have to. But that him then manipulating, I feel like was manipulating, you know, Job, I automatically was like, nope, whatever happens after this, you deserve, you know? But
yeah. Everything I have here is for realism. So.
Well, then, here we go. All right, so for realism, I would give this a 1.
Oh, I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
We're twinsies again.
There are so many things that I'm like, nope,
yes,
nope.
The entire movie is a no.
But yeah, it's like, first, it didn't make any sense. And I don't... It's obvious that I'm pretty sure that they probably made the VR graphics after they filmed, which makes it even like less of an excuse. But in the beginning, you see the chimp in the little like globe spinny thing, and he's spinning around in circles, going upside down.
The gyrosphere, yeah.
But then in the VR, he's just walking forward.
Yeah.
There is no reason why. Like before, like later in the movie, they show, oh, when you're driving a car, it like moves around with you. And then whenever they were in the globe sphere thing as well, like they were like weightless, and that's why it was bringing them upside down.
And they were flying.
Yeah.
In those. But yeah, when the chimp was doing it, it made no sense at all.
Made no sense whatsoever. Yeah. I will give the movie props that what they chose as like their VR setup is pretty similar to nowadays, where it's like, you know, these glasses, what would
goggles.
You call goggles that you put on as like a TV screen. The only difference is like for them, their sensors were kind of like built into the machines that they're like that would create the feeling of movement, while us, we have our motion sticks. And it's kind of interesting because it's like their interpretation is, oh, your whole body is going to feel the movement, while here or in present day, it's like you kind of feel the movement just by like your eyes.
It kind of tricks your mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Some people have gotten motion sick from it.
Yeah, I have to be very careful when I play VR. And then it's kind of frustrating whenever the chimp gets like loose and they end up trying to catch him. They just jump straight to guns with bullets that can kill. I don't understand why they didn't try and at least start off with tranquilizers.
Yes.
That didn't make any sense.
Thank you.
I was like, what the hell? It's just so overblown.
They just woke up and chose murder.
It's like, is literally movies got a movie.
Yes.
It's like, we gotta
off the chimp so we can get a human.
Yeah, exactly. It just, no. And especially, I can imagine.
Or even rubber bullets.
I can imagine, like, a chimp being used for, like, science is extremely expensive.
Yes.
They're not going to just kill it.
Well, this kind of research I would expect to cost basically millions of dollars. You're not just going to want to throw away millions of dollars in research and data by killing the chimp if you don't have to.
Yeah, it seemed way of an overreaction.
Yeah, it was definitely excessive.
And then also the fact that Job becomes so intelligent that he can start reading minds. Like, I don't understand where the trope started where, oh, if you get intelligent enough, you can start reading minds and you can start controlling people. It's like, that's not how that works. That's like a different, that's separate from intelligence, in my opinion.
They tried to explain it as unlocking the potential of the brain, which there are theories about that, but not necessarily controlling others. It's more on the lines of maybe psychic type abilities, maybe reading minds, but it's more of a mental connection type thing in that respect. But telekinesis was one of the biggest ones. And that's mostly mind over matter.
Yeah. Which I'll touch on that a little bit later. Yeah. But my next point, though, there are two different types of alternative, or would it be alternative? Artificial realities. There is, yeah, you're on the same track. There is virtual reality, which is what you see with like the goggles, and then you play a game, and it's like you're immersed into that world. But then there's augmented reality, which is what a lot of people associate like Pokemon Go with, where it's like you are living in the your world, but then you see like a digital creature, like, you know, on the ground or whatever,
or on your couch.
Yeah. So this movie doesn't seem to know the difference between the two, because it starts off with virtual reality, and they are very strong with pushing the fact that it's virtual reality. But then once he starts getting his abilities and he's attacking people, it then becomes augmented reality, where it's like it like can impact people and like hurt them and stuff like that. But I'm just like, that's not the same.
Yeah.
It just... Plus, I mean, the whole stretch on like it's a digital world. Like it's not going to suddenly become real. Like that's not how that works. Like,
it shouldn't be able to affect anything physically. Yeah,
like, you know, best case scenario, if he could unlock and become like telepathic or whatever, that would be the extent of his powers. He shouldn't be able to control like virtual reality. Like it's literally not reality. That's why it's called virtual or augmented reality. It's not a thing. You can't just be like, oh, it's real now.
Yeah, I know he was trying to become a cyber being, but it seems very off.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if he had tried to become a cyber being to be like, oh, like, I'm immortal, and like that one movie that Johnny Depp was in, I forgot what it's called, where it's like he dies and then he like becomes transported out into a computer, and so it's like,
I think I saw that one.
But it's like that's kind of like our thoughts right now on like the next like frontier to immortality is our consciousness is imported to a computer. It would have been kind of cool.
Upload.
Yeah, it would have been kind of cool if they had played around that idea.
Yeah.
But we got this instead.
Yeah.
But my final little nitpick is the realisticness on the drugs increasing his intelligence. Now, I'm not an expert, so maybe I'm completely wrong about this, but it's like I could totally picture, and this is just like fun bantering, so anyone in the comments can join in if they have their own separate ideas. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, if there's a drug that they're using to try and treat Alzheimer's, then it would seem reasonable to assume that, you know, if you started off as one level of intelligence and you know, decline due to the disease, then by reversing the disease, then you can heal and go back to your normal intelligence. State. Yeah. But I don't understand how someone born with a certain intelligence can then increase their intelligence. And I mean, we know it's like it's based off of genetics, it's based off of nutrition, it's based off of environment. Like if they were like loved and supported. Also, like how well they were socialized. Like there's multiple factors that play into IQ, and it's a very complicated and in some ways controversial. I cannot talk. My God, controversial. And I'm talking about intelligence and I can't talk. The irony. But anyways, but what's kind of so where my mind is going with this is if, for example, Job, he had lower intelligence because of nutritional deficiencies, or his mom, was taking certain substances that,
hindered his development.
Yeah, exactly. Then maybe the drug would heal those deficiencies and allow him to become, his original intelligence. But I don't know. It just seems doubtful that you would be able to increase someone's intelligence if, like, in best case scenario, they are as intelligent as they're going to be with all of the best environmental factors, all of that, and then you try and enhance. I don't know.
Kind of the argument of ignorance can be cured, but stupidity can't.
Yeah. And then I also learned, because I did some research and there wasn't a whole lot of answers. Their answers was like, oh, socialize, exercise, have the right diet with like omega-3s and stuff. Is like, there's only so much you can do environmentally with like intelligence. It's like a lot of it, so genetics plays a huge role. I mean, as a mixture of the two, environment and genetics. But one of the things that it mentioned, God dang it. Oh yeah, okay, so there's two types of intelligences. There's crystallized intelligence, which refers to vocabulary, knowledge, and skills. And this, of course, naturally increases as we age and we gain more knowledge. But then there's also fluid intelligence, and that's more like your base intelligence, like your ability to reason and think abstractly. So one thing that they don't specify is what kind of intelligence that this increases. So I would assume it'd be fluid intelligence. But it kind of seemed like
they're trying to imply both.
Yeah, it's like the way that he was acting, it did seem like it was crystallized as well. But anyways, I didn't say that very well, so for our video listeners, I apologize. I probably did not sound as refined as I would have liked, but...
Yeah, you kind of went on a little bit there.
Well, yeah. Well, that's what happens when I don't write things down. It's like, whenever I write down my points, I can keep it quick and concise. And then whenever I'm like, oh, I'm just going to add this thing really quick, it ends up being just as long as all of the other points combined. But
anyway. So I give it a 1 as well. They had a good idea, but their execution fell very, very short. They didn't think about the actual processes for scientific experimentation. They implied that they had a couple other chimps, but they never showed it ever. They said that one was the best chimp that they had and that it was working the best on him, but they didn't really do anything to try to get him back. They made it seem like it was just because he had killed one person, but they still would have wanted to test him, get him back safely, and try to figure out where they went wrong so they can adjust the experiment and try again with a different chimp or something of the like, go back to the drawing board, see what happened, what went wrong, and adjust it and try again. That's how the scientific method works.
Yeah.
There's also very, very long, lengthy, involved processes from moving from animal testing to human trials.
Oh, yeah. What he
And
was doing
they
was completely illegal.
Skipped it completely. Didn't have him sign anything. And with someone that's not able to make decisions themselves for various reasons, they're supposed to have a legal guardian that people contact for their permission as well. So they make an informed decision regarding that person's health and safety. So the only thing he really did was talk to the church, the priest at the church, where he was living in a shed and acting as a handyman, and basically bribing him to be able to use him in his experiments.
Yeah, what he did was not just, like, morally wrong, but legally wrong, for sure. Like, if anyone had found out, like, he would have been screwed.
Oh, yeah.
He probably would have lost...
He would have lost his license.
Yeah.
He would have gone to jail. He would have been fined out the ass.
Yeah.
He would have been completely financially and legally ruined. And his reputation would have been completely shot. He would have not been able to get any kind of job anywhere.
Yeah, because it's like, you know, granted, chimps are genetically very similar to us, but that it doesn't always translate. No. If a drug works on a chimp, it'll work on us. So it's like, what if that drug had killed him?
Mm-hmm.
Then he would have been, I'd assuming, probably manslaughter rather than murder.
And neglect.
Yeah.
Gross neglect. At least.
And it's also surprising that it was really just him working on it. It's like, rather than like a whole team.
It should have been a whole team.
Yeah.
Because their results also have to be verified by peers.
Yeah, non-biased
like, that's
opinions.
The whole point of science is that if you are able to do an experiment, if you design and complete an experiment and post your results, someone else should be able to take that information and do the same experiment and be able to replicate those results so they can confirm, yes, this is correct. This is what I found as well. I can confirm that this is how it should be. Or, no, this is what our experiment had, so maybe your parameters were off or we were somehow different. Maybe it's an environmental factor. Maybe it's just luck that you got this instead.
Yeah.
Maybe your calibration's off. But someone else should be able to test that, and if it's correct, everybody should be able to get roughly the same result within a margin of error.
And plus, like, whenever they submit the information to the FDA for approval, like, they're going to have to show is like, this is like our experiment. So it's like, he's going to have to hide the fact that he experimented on a human being before they were ready for that. It's like, how are they even going to be able to get it approved when the subject that they are using to prove that works is illegal?
Yeah.
It just...
Well, I mean, he can use the chimps, but he would have to go back again to the drawing board and do those experiments with multiple chimps in multiple different ways just to make sure that it really is truly working and it wasn't a one-off like it was on Roscoe. So then they would have to go to the FDA and get it approved, the formula itself approved, before they even go into testing. Which usually involves peers doing the same experiments.
Yeah,
and verifying those results.
It's like, this is why drugs take like
forever
10 years to get approved.
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
COVID was kind of a unique situation.
Well, it's like, I think vaccines, well, it depends on the vaccine.
They had the base, I believe. But a lot of it was still experimental. But again, it was a weird circumstance. So it kind of pushed things through a little faster.
Well, I know, like, I don't remember the whole story on how they streamlined it, but I do know, like, I know they, like, sequenced the virus as soon as it became available, and then they started to do, like, preliminary testing. I think it's like in vitro or whatever to like prove that it is safe. And then they moved to human trials. And then, but they still had, I think, yeah, they had even more people. I think they had like 10,000 volunteers or something like that. I think the difference was like the length of time that they normally wait between like long-term effects. I don't remember. But the point is, like, they didn't necessarily take a whole lot of shortcuts, but they did do certain things that lengthened shortened
shortened the process.
That shortened the process.
Yeah. Again, due to extenuating circumstances, it was kind of it was a pandemic. So, I also don't understand why when he did start the experimentation on Job, when he started noticing certain things that were clear red flags, like him absorbing the information absurdly fast, he didn't pump the brakes at all. Like, at one point, he stopped giving him the vitamin cocktail, whatever he was injecting him with, but they were still doing the virtual reality stuff and those different discs of knowledge that he was absorbing. So they didn't really slow anything down. It was already in his system. That was only part of the experiment. He didn't back off and see maybe if it wears off after a little while.
Yeah,
or
that's true.
Does it continue to grow exponentially? Are we feeding it too quickly? Anything like that.
Yeah, because in like a real life scenario, you wouldn't be able to have someone elderly constantly be under those like the testing and stuff like that to like keep their, because it's like at that point in time you're like, well, does the drug actually work, or is it just like the mental stimulation, you know?
Exactly. So he didn't pump the brakes at all. He didn't try to figure out what was helping him more. He didn't try to see, he didn't see that it was starting to get bad at that point anyway. And he had already, at that point, if it was just about increasing intelligence, he should have been stopping at that point anyway. He had done what he had set out to do. There was no reason to continue testing on him.
Yeah.
He should have just called it good and started the process of actual human trials legally so that he could try to replicate the same results. If he had stopped it, it might not have gone to the point that it did. What also killed me was... And it did kill me. I was so confused. Job kept getting into the facility on his own. Like, he just waltzed in there and was able to get into the machinery and even into the meds with nothing.
That stuff would be under lock and key and guard.
Even before he had his mental abilities and was able to get around the different security swipe areas and everything, he just waltzed in and was able to use them at will. That made zero sense whatsoever. There was no supervision. There was nothing. He was on his own in a highly secure facility, or supposed to be. And it just irked me so much. It made zero sense why he was able to do that. And even bring the woman with him at one point.
Which, I forgot to mention this on my own realism, but like her, when she is like, I'm stuck, I'm being sucked down or whatever, like she's acting like it was actually like happening to her. But it's like, you're literally just have a little mini TV screen on your goggles.
All she had to do was take off the headset. It's literally all she had to do.
Like, I'm sure they're trying to be, like, cinematic, but I was just like, this is dumb. Like, this woman is being way too dramatic.
Every other instance where they had some kind of issue, all they had to do was remove the headset, and it stopped it automatically.
Yeah.
So... Unless the other person was having a seizure, which did happen a couple of times. Job did have a small seizure. So the doctor guy had to take his headset off and stop it at the computer manually.
Yeah.
But the chick wasn't having a seizure or anything. She was just stupid and didn't take off her headset.
It's like, I can understand, like, someone, like, never experiencing VR before, but it's like, I don't know. She just kind of bought into it a little bit too quickly.
Well, also, the whole arc with her irked me pretty bad too, because intelligence does not equal social aptitude at all. There's plenty of people that are super, super intelligent and are the most socially awkward people of all time.
Yeah.
So just because his intelligence is increasing does not mean that he would be better in social situations and be able to pick up on social cues, especially when he hasn't learned how to do so. Unless some of those discs were also on social etiquette and cues, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
There's no reason why they would be on there. A lot of the ones that they mentioned were history.
Yeah.
So, no. So he's intelligent, so now he can suddenly get a date. It just didn't make sense at all. So, those are the main things. Most of it's just the science behind it and the security measures and testing in and of itself is a giant nope. He would also not have been allowed to bring any of that home with him if it's that highly secretive and classified.
And
he would
expensive.
not have been able to remove anything from that facility. He would have had to have stayed there.
Yeah. Yep.
Instead of bringing it home with him.
Yep.
So I'm calling major BS there. So, whole movie's a nope. I'm not mad that I watched it. I was kind of disappointed by it. It's one that you could skip.
Yeah.
For sure. The deaths were just ridiculous and made not much sense and just... I'm done.
Yeah, I think this one is skippable, unless if you want to laugh at the old 90s graphics, but...
Especially the spontaneous combustion, I guess, is what they were trying to go for with the priest. I guess.
Yeah, but...
Could have just given them each a brain aneurysm, and that would have made more sense, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, but... Anyways, thank you for joining us today, and please comment on what you thought of the movie. If you'd like to recommend a movie, game, or tea, and keep up to date with our content, you can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and we're on TikTok now, and most places you listen to podcasts.
And if you'd like to support the podcast, please subscribe, like, and share our content. If you'd like to support us monetarily, we do have a Teespring and a PayPal, and we also have our affiliate link with Plum Deluxe available. It does not affect the price of the tea. It just allows us to keep doing what we love. And you'll find all of the sites mentioned linked down below. Until the next time, guys, stay safe and stay spoopy.
Bye!
Bye.